My brothers and sisters, let me ask you something that stirs the soul. Have you ever stood in the arms of love and still felt alone? Have you ever whispered your truth, but silence met you instead of understanding? Oh, yes, I know, because the heart is no stranger to aching, and yet it keeps beating, keeps hoping, keeps reaching, and it is that reaching, that striving for something gentle, something kind that brings us here today. Now let's talk plain. Love ain't just sweet words and soft touches. It's work, it's wisdom, it's rising up even when it's easier to lie down. If we are to build something that lasts, something that stands tall even in the storms, we need more than feelings. We need skills. Yes, baby, skills. My brothers and sisters, we must begin at the root. And the root, the soil in which every healthy romantic relationship must be planted, is respect. Without it, love will wilt. Without it, connection turns into control and desire becomes demand. Respect is not a pretty ribbon we tie on top of love. It is the base, the beginning, the breath. When you love someone, truly love them, you must first see them, not as an extension of yourself, not as a project to fix, but as a full, breathing, sacred being. You must understand that they come with their own story, their own scars, their own rhythm. And you don't get to rewrite their story, you get to listen to it. You don't own their scars, you honor them. You don't control their rhythm, you learn to dance with it. That is respect. It is the way you speak when you're angry. It is the way you listen when you disagree. It is the tone in your voice when you know you're right, and the patience in your spirit when you know they're wrong. It shows up in the small places, in the waiting, in the checking in the giving of space. Respect doesn't raise its voice to be heard. It doesn't silence others to win. It knows that power is not in dominance, but in dignity. A healthy romantic relationship does not thrive on one person leading and the other following without voice. No, baby, this ain't no parade. This is a partnership. And a partnership without respect is just a slow unraveling. When one person feels unseen, unheard, or unworthy, even love begins to feel like a prison. You can't be in love and be afraid to speak. You can't be in love and be afraid to breathe. You see, respect teaches us to slow down and listen, not just to words, but to silences. It tells us to ask before assuming, to learn before judging, and to honor each other's pasts, even the ones we don't understand. Because when someone trusts you enough to love you, to let you close to their heart, close to their pain, that is sacred ground. And you don't walk on sacred ground with muddy boots and loud voices. You tread soft, you tread kind, and let's not fool ourselves into thinking that respect is a one-time gift. No. Respect is not a moment, it is a practice, a daily offering, a decision made in every conversation, every disagreement, every touch. It's in how you talk about your partner when they're not in the room. It's in how you show up for them when they're tired, confused, or lost in their own storms. And respect doesn't mean agreeing on everything. It doesn't mean losing yourself in the other person, quite the opposite. It means standing strong in who you are while making space for them to do the same. It means disagreeing with grace. It means allowing someone to feel safe even when you're both in the fire, because it is entirely possible to hold someone accountable and still hold them with love. Now, all the other skills, communication, trust, boundaries, conflict resolution, and yes, even self-love, lean on respect to do their good work. Without it, communication becomes manipulation, trust becomes fragile, boundaries become barriers, conflict becomes war, and self-love becomes lonely. But when respect is the undercurrent, all things flow smoother, even the hard days, especially the hard days. Because love isn't proven when everything is easy. It's proven when things are tough and you still choose to show up gently. Still choose to listen, still choose to believe in the dignity of the person you chose to love. So if you're searching for the skills to build a love that lasts, a love that heals, a love that lifts, You must begin here. You must begin with respect. Speak it, show it, practice it, live it, because where respect lives, love is safe to grow. And when love is safe to grow, everything else will follow. Now that we've planted ourselves in the soil of respect, let's talk about the rain that waters that soil, the thing that keeps love alive day after day. I'm talking about communication. Not just talking for talking's sake, but communication as a living, breathing act of love. Love in motion. Love that listens, love that speaks, love that shows up between the words and beyond them. You see, people often think communication is just saying what's on your mind, but baby, there's a difference between speaking and being heard. There's a difference between making noise and making connection. You can talk all day and still leave a person feeling lonely, because communication in a relationship is not about getting your point across. It's about opening your heart without closing the door on someone else's. And let me tell you something plain. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. It's the tone, the timing, the tenderness. You can be right in your truth and still be wrong in your delivery. If your words come with sharp edges, they cut. If they come soaked in blame, they drown. But when they come wrapped in care and intention, oh, how they heal. That's when two people stop standing on opposite sides of a fence and start building a bridge. Now, communication, real communication, takes courage. It means telling the truth even when it trembles. It means saying, I need you without shame. It means saying, I was wrong without pride. It means asking for understanding instead of demanding agreement. Because, beloved, sometimes love is quiet. Sometimes it's in the soft question, the long pause, the choice to stay when walking away would be easier. It's in the listening not to reply, but to receive. And don't think it's only about deep talks or late night confessions. Communication lives in the everyday, in the good mornings, the check-ins, the little, I saw this and thought of you. It lives in the way you notice their silence, in the way you ask what's heavy before assuming what's wrong. Healthy romantic relationships don't starve from lack of passion. They starve from silence, from unspoken needs, from unheard hearts. Now I'll tell you something else that might be hard to hear. Communication doesn't mean you'll always agree. It doesn't mean the absence of conflict, but it does mean that even in disagreement, you choose to understand rather than overpower. You choose to soften rather than shut down. You don't have to win. You have to connect. That's the real victory. That's the real strength. And when respect is already laid down, when you've done the work to see each other fully, communication becomes a sacred space, a place where both of you can unfold, where both of you can be seen without performing, heard without shouting, understood without proving. It becomes a rhythm, a dance, not perfect, but powerful. See, if you want to build something lasting, you've got to speak love in every language: words, silence, touch, presence. And when the hard days come, and they will, it's communication that will hold you. Not just the sweet things, but the hard truths, the apologies, the fears, the dreams. All of it belongs. So don't just talk, don't just vent. Learn to share. Learn to ask. Learn to sit in silence together until the right words come. And when they do, let them come wrapped in love, because when communication is alive, love doesn't have to guess. Love doesn't have to shrink. Love can rise, and so can you. Now that we've laid down respect and learned to speak and listen with love, we must talk about the quiet, steady thread that holds it all together: trust. Oh yes, trust. The soul of a healthy romantic relationship. It's not flashy. It doesn't beg for attention, but without it, everything else falls like dust in the wind. Trust is not something you demand, and it sure isn't something you fake. It's something you build, brick by brick, truth by truth, with every word that matches your actions, with every promise kept, every secret held gently, every mistake owned without excuse. Trust isn't born in grand gestures. It's born in the everyday, the showing up, the consistency, the truth you tell even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. People often think love is enough, but love without trust is a beautiful house with a broken foundation. You can decorate it all you want, but it'll crumble under pressure. Because when trust is missing, doubt moves in, insecurity walks through the door, and fear takes a seat at your table, whispering stories that were never true to begin with. And baby, trust don't live in perfection. We all mess up, we all fall short. But trust is built in how we repair, not in pretending nothing happened, but in facing the truth with humility, in saying I was wrong and then changing the behavior, not just repeating the apology. Trust doesn't grow from fancy words, it grows from honest effort. Now, there's something tender we need to say here. If someone has trusted you with their heart, you've been given something holy. You don't get to play with that. You don't get to use their vulnerability as a weapon when you're hurt. You don't get to twist the truth just to win the argument, because every time you lie, every time you withhold, every time you act in secret, you are chiseling cracks in something sacred. And if you are the one learning to trust, maybe you've been hurt before, maybe you've been broken down and built back up, know this: you are allowed to protect your peace. Trust does not mean ignoring red flags or silencing your intuition. Trust is not blind faith. It is informed belief, built not from fantasy, but from patterns, from time, from truth. To love someone fully, to trust them deeply, you must let them see you. You must stand in your truth and let it be enough. That takes courage. That takes soul. Because when trust is real, it gives love a safe place to rest. It says, I believe you, and means it. It says, I believe in you, and shows it. And trust goes both ways. It's not just asking someone to be honest. It's also being the kind of person they can be honest with. That means creating a space where truth can land safely, where your partner doesn't have to fear your reaction, where honesty isn't punished, where openness is met with grace. Let me tell you this. Trust isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the silence after the truth has been spoken and you choose to stay. Sometimes it's in the small act of letting someone in again and again, even after pain. And sometimes it's in the boundaries you set, the questions you ask, the forgiveness you extend. Trust isn't about never being hurt. It's about building something strong enough to survive it. Now, when you've built your love on respect, when you've watered it with honest communication, and when you've guarded it with trust, you've got something powerful, something rare, a love that doesn't just feel good, but does good, a love that holds steady, a love that heals. Because where trust lives, love can truly be free. Now, after we've built our home on respect, filled it with honest words, and sealed it tight with trust, there comes something people often misunderstand, something soft, something strong. Boundaries. Yes, baby, boundaries. And let me tell you now, they are not the enemy of love. They are the protectors of peace, the keepers of wholeness. You see, somewhere along the way, we were taught that love means saying yes to everything. That to love someone is to give them all of us, all the time, no questions asked. But that, my dear, is not love. That is losing yourself. And you were not put on this earth to disappear in someone else's arms. You were born whole. You are already enough. And in love, two whole people come together, not to be swallowed, but to be seen. Boundaries are not walls. Don't let anyone fool you into thinking they are. Boundaries don't push love away, they give it direction. They are not the absence of connection, they are the structure that allows connection to thrive without fear, without pressure, without resentment. A relationship without boundaries is like a song with no rhythm, chaotic, loud, and eventually unbearable. A boundary is you saying, this is what I need to feel safe. This is what I can give without losing myself. This is how I wish to be treated. That is not selfish. That is sacred. That is self-love in action. Because love that is healthy does not ask you to pour from an empty cup. It does not celebrate your silence. It does not ignore your limits. It honors them. And just like communication, just like trust, boundaries are not one-time declarations. They are living, they grow, they shift, they deepen. Some boundaries are soft, flexible, bending with time and trust. Others are firm, clear lines drawn in the sand that say, I will not shrink to be loved. I will not bleed to be accepted. And you have the right to both. Setting boundaries is not about pushing someone out. It's about letting them in the right way, at the right pace, with the right understanding. It is an invitation to love you better. It's not a threat. It's not control. It's clarity. And clarity, my loves, is kindness. But here's the part many forget. Boundaries go both ways. Just as you deserve to set them, you must also honor them. You must listen when your partner says, this hurts me. You must not take it personally when they need space. You must learn the language of their needs without feeling that your own worth is under attack. Because if we are to love fully, we must be willing to love respectfully. We must learn that freedom within a relationship is not disconnection, it is trust in motion. And baby, if someone cannot honor your boundaries, then it is not love they want. It is control. Love doesn't push past your limits. Love doesn't punish your no. Love does not twist your need for space into rejection. When someone truly sees you, they will not only accept your boundaries, they will help you protect them. You teach people how to love you by the way you love yourself, by the way you say this is okay and this is not, by the way you speak up not to argue but to be heard, by the way you stay true to yourself even in the deepest closeness. Because what good is intimacy if it costs you your identity? Now, when you put all this together, respect, communication, trust, and healthy boundaries, what you have is not just a relationship. What you have is a sanctuary. A space where love can breathe, where truth can stretch its arms, where both people can grow, not in each other's shadow, but side by side in sunlight. Because love without boundaries is a wildfire. But love with boundaries, that's a flame that warms, a light that guides, a fire that lasts. Now, my loves, let's not tiptoe around it. Conflict will come. It will knock on your door whether your house is made of respect, trust, communication, or the finest boundaries. Conflict is part of every real relationship because you are two different souls shaped by different storms, learning how to dance in the same rhythm. It is not conflict that threatens love. It is how we handle it that matters. See, too many people are afraid of conflict. They believe that if there's a fight, then love must be slipping. That if tension rises, the relationship must be failing. But baby, let me tell you something true. Conflict is not a curse. It's a conversation waiting to happen. It's a chance to understand each other more deeply, to stretch love beyond comfort, to build a bridge over misunderstanding. Avoidance is what will break you. Silence is not peace. Silence is a slow sinking. It's where resentment brews, where unspoken needs turn into bitterness. You can only swallow so much before your heart starts to feel full of things you never got to say. And a heart that holds too many unsaid things becomes heavy, too heavy to carry love the way it deserves to be carried. When conflict comes, and it will, the question is not who wins. The question is, do we grow or do we shrink? Do we move toward each other or away? Healthy romantic relationships don't avoid conflict. They learn how to walk through it with grace. They know how to raise their voices without tearing each other down. They know how to sit in the tension without running for the door. Respect shows up here stronger than ever. When you're upset, when you're hurt, when you're frustrated, that's when respect is tested. That's when love has to hold your words before they fly from your mouth. That's when you take a breath, not to calm down, but to remember the human in front of you, the one you chose, the one you said yes to. And communication, oh, it's not about who's louder. It's about who listens. Can you listen to the pain behind the anger? Can you hear the fear behind the silence? Can you slow down long enough to not just react, but respond? That's love. That's maturity. That's skill. Trust gets involved too, because trust says, even in this heat, I believe we'll come back to each other. It says, even though we're struggling, I know this doesn't mean the end. When you've built trust, conflict becomes less about defense and more about discovery. You start asking, what are you really feeling, instead of, why are you attacking me? And boundaries, oh yes, they matter here too. Boundaries remind you that it's okay to take a break, to cool off, to say, I love you, but I need a moment. Boundaries give space without giving up. They keep the fight clean. They keep the love safe. Even when things get messy, conflict is a classroom. It teaches you what your partner needs, what still hurts, what still heals. And if you show up with openness, with love that's willing to do the work, you'll come out strong, you'll come out wiser, you'll come out closer. But if you run from every disagreement, you will never know the real depth of love. Because intimacy isn't just built in the sweet moments, it's built in the repair, in the after, in the reaching out when you could have stayed distant, in the apology that isn't forced, and the forgiveness that isn't rushed. So when the tension rises, don't turn away. Don't cover it up with silence. Don't bury it beneath false peace. Stand in it, speak in it, grow through it, because a relationship that survives conflict with compassion becomes unbreakable. Now let me bring your heart home to something many forget, yet it is the heartbeat of all the rest: self-love. Yes, child, self-love. The root that holds every other skill steady, because you can't pour out truth, you can't speak in love, you can't hold trust, and you surely can't honor a boundary if you have not first honored yourself. See, too often we are taught to find our worth in someone else's arms, to wait for love to make us feel whole, to believe that being chosen by another will finally mean we are enough. But baby, you were enough before anyone laid eyes on you, before anyone called you beautiful, before anyone said, I love you. Your worth is not borrowed from someone else's opinion. It is built into your being. And let me tell you, the way you love yourself teaches others how to love you. If you shrink to be held, if you quiet your truth to keep the peace, if you abandon your own needs so someone else can feel comfortable, you are teaching them that your spirit is negotiable, that your joy is expendable, that your voice is optional. And darling, it is not. When you love yourself, really love yourself, you don't just glow, you grow. You set standards, not as weapons, but as wisdom. You do not chase love, you attract it. Because the kind of love you draw in is a mirror of the love you give yourself. When you treat your body with care, your mind with kindness, your heart with compassion, you naturally expect the same from others. And when someone doesn't rise to meet that, you don't question your worth, you question the fit. Now, don't confuse self-love with ego. This isn't about arrogance. This isn't about thinking you're better. No, this is about knowing you are sacred. It's about not settling for love that drains you. It's about saying, I will not beg to be seen. I will not beg to be understood. I will not beg to be loved. You are not here to beg. You are here to be. When two people come together in love, they do not complete each other. They complement each other. Two whole people walking side by side, not leaning on each other for identity, but standing in their own light, casting love over one another without dimming. And that only happens when each one has done the work of loving who they are alone. And this work, this self-love, it's not always pretty. It's not bubble baths and mantras and mirror talk. Sometimes it's the hard decision to walk away from something that hurts. Sometimes it's choosing rest over performance. Sometimes it's going to therapy or setting a hard boundary or looking at yourself in the quiet and saying, I forgive you. It's in the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening. It's in the choices you make when no one is watching. It's in how you handle failure, how you celebrate growth, how you hold your own hand in the dark. You become your own home. And when you've made peace with yourself, you stop looking for someone else to fix what was never broken. And what a gift that becomes to a partner, to love someone who already loves themselves. You won't put pressure on them to carry what's not theirs. You won't expect them to be your everything. You will meet them from a place of fullness, not emptiness. And together you will build something rooted in truth, not in need. So yes, learn to respect. Yes, learn to communicate. Yes, build trust and uphold boundaries and grow through conflict. But let it all begin right here with you, with the way you choose yourself over and over again. Because when you love yourself deeply, you show others how to do the same. And when two people meet in that kind of wholeness, the love they share becomes something holy. Now, after all has been said, after we've talked about respect that doesn't waver, communication that softens, trust that anchors, boundaries that protect, conflict that teaches, and self-love that holds it all together, there's still something more, something subtle yet mighty, something that makes love not just survive. It's the ability to grow together. See, too many people enter love hoping it'll stay just the way it is in the beginning. All butterflies and late night calls, all sparks and sweet words. But love is not a still thing. Love is not a photograph. It's a moving picture, a living garden, and baby, anything living must grow. Now, growth doesn't always come dressed in beauty. Sometimes it comes in questions that shake you. Sometimes it shows up in changes you didn't expect, in careers, in beliefs, in bodies, in dreams. Life has a way of rearranging us. We are not the same people year to year. And so in love, if we do not make space for change, we suffocate what could have become something beautiful. Growing together means choosing not just the person your partner is now, but also who they're becoming. It means not clinging to yesterday's version of them because it felt safer or sweeter. It means saying, I see the newness in you and I'm still here. It means staying curious, asking questions, cheering them on when they evolve, helping them hold a mirror when they're afraid of their own reflection. And don't get it twisted, this kind of growth is not one-sided. If only one of you is reaching, only one of you is healing, only one of you is dreaming forward, then love begins to tilt. It begins to ache. Growth together is a dance. Sometimes you lead, sometimes they do. Sometimes you move in silence, sometimes you move in celebration, but you both keep moving. That's why all the other pieces matter so much. Without respect, growth feels like rejection. Without communication, it feels like distance. Without trust, it feels like betrayal. Without boundaries, it feels like abandonment. And without self-love, it feels like losing yourself in someone else's change. But when all those pieces are in place, oh, what a thing it is. To grow together is to love each other as students and teachers, to say, let me learn you again, to say, I've never been here before either, but I'm not going anywhere. That's the kind of love that can stretch across decades, that can carry through storms, that can age not just gracefully, but gratefully. Sometimes growing together looks like trying something new, traveling, healing old wounds, reading side by side, going to counseling, not because you're broken, but because you care. Sometimes it looks like uncomfortable truths, realizing one of you wants something different and having the courage to talk about it with tenderness, not fear. Sometimes it's one of you falling and the other saying, I've got you. Sometimes it's both of you stumbling and reaching for each other anyway. Growth is messy, but it's real, it's holy, it's what turns romance into legacy. And let's be real, it's easy to fall in love. But to stay in love, to stay awake in it, to stay open in it, to stay soft in it while both of you change, that takes work, that takes intention, that takes grace. So choose each other again and again, not just when it's convenient, not just when it's easy, but when it stretches you, when it challenges you, when it calls you to become someone new. Because when two people choose to grow together, they create a love that doesn't expire with time. It deepens, it matures, it sings louder even in silence. And that, my love, is where real intimacy lives. As we come to the close of this journey together, remember this. A healthy, thriving, romantic relationship is not built, it's forged in the quiet moments, the deep conversations, the challenges faced side by side, and the love that continues to grow, evolve, and stretch with time. Each piece of this journey, respect, communication, trust, boundaries, conflict, self-love, and growth, works in harmony to create something sacred, something lasting. It's not always easy. There will be days when you stumble, And that's okay. It's not the stumble that matters. It's the strength to rise again, hand in hand, with the understanding that love is both the anchor and the wings that keep you grounded and soaring. So, as you move forward in your own relationships, may you always choose to love with depth, to communicate with kindness, to trust with courage, to respect with grace, to grow with intention, and to honor yourself along the way. You are deserving of love that lifts you, nurtures you, and allows you to be fully who you are. Thank you for allowing me to share these words with you today. May your relationships be filled with understanding, joy, and the kind of love that transforms both of you, not just for today, but for the lifetime ahead. Good luck, and thank you. Hello, friends. There is a certain music in silence that speaks louder than the clamor of voices. There is a strength in restraint that holds more power than endless streams of words. My friends, too many of us rush to fill the air, believing that volume proves wisdom, believing that noise secures respect. Yet the truth is simple. Influence does not always come from how much you say, but from how deeply you let your presence speak. I have seen silence stretch across a room and make hearts tremble. I have seen one pause, one thoughtful breath, carry more weight than 1,000 sentences. When you speak less, you invite others to lean closer, to wonder, to listen. You give your words the dignity of echo. You allow each syllable to stand in its own light. We live in a world that rewards fast answers and constant chatter. But the wise know that the pause between the notes is what gives the music its soul. When you choose silence, you are not withholding power, you are shaping it. You are saying to the world that you do not need to prove yourself with noise. You are choosing to let the quality of your thought, the fire of your vision, and the steadiness of your spirit do the talking. Influence is not found in endless explanations. It is born in clarity, it grows in timing. It thrives in knowing when to hold your tongue and when to release your voice like thunder. A single well-placed word after a long silence can strike like lightning. It can change a room. It can shift a destiny. Silence creates space for your words to carry weight and meaning. It may sound simple, but within that simplicity rests a truth many overlook. When you choose not to rush, when you choose not to spill every thought the moment it comes, you give your words room to breathe. They settle in the air like seeds on fertile soil. They do not get lost in noise. They do not tumble over each other like stones in a restless stream. Instead, they find a place to land, to grow, to root themselves in the minds of those who listen. Too often we mistake abundance of words for abundance of wisdom. We believe that the more we speak, the more influence we hold. But the reality is the opposite. When every moment is filled with chatter, when every silence is broken by unnecessary noise, people stop hearing the essence of what we mean. They hear sound, but not substance. Silence, however, reshapes the atmosphere. It calls attention, it frames your thoughts, it builds anticipation. The moment you finally speak, the listener leans forward. They know what comes after stillness carries significance. Think of the greatest leaders, teachers, or guides you have known. Rarely are they the ones who flood every space with words. They are the ones who pause, who wait, who hold silence until their words cannot be ignored. That space they create is not weakness, it is strength. It is an unspoken message that what they are about to say matters, that they will not waste air on what does not serve truth. Silence becomes their ally, sharpening their speech, trimming away the excess, leaving only the essence. When you learn to value silence, you teach others to value your words. Every sentence you speak begins to carry a weight that lingers beyond the moment. It becomes a voice people remember, not because it was the loudest, but because it was the clearest. Your words are like stones cast into still water. The quieter the surface, the further the ripples spread. That is the power of silence. It is not the absence of expression, but the amplifier of expression. We must understand that silence is not emptiness. It is a container, it is a vessel that holds the meaning of what we are about to release. Without silence, words collapse under their own weight. They rush out too fast, too many, too unshaped. But when wrapped in silence, words are sculpted, sharpened, polished. They rise with dignity, they strike with purpose, and they leave behind echoes that outlive the moment. Think of how many times you have been in a room filled with voices all speaking at once. What do you remember? Very little. Now think of the time someone spoke after a long pause, slowly, carefully. Those are the words that stay. They stay because silence carved a space for them to rest. They stay because silence made them visible against the blur of noise. To speak less is not to withhold wisdom. It is to honor it. It is to recognize that meaning cannot survive in overcrowded spaces. Silence gives your truth the stage. It gives your message the spotlight. It ensures that your words are not swept away like dust in the wind, but anchored deep within those who hear them. So when you feel the urge to fill every gap, remember this truth. Do not fear silence. Let it serve you. Let it prepare the ground so that when you speak, your words arrive like rain after drought. Few drops, yet powerful enough to awaken life. Few words, yet strong enough to stir hearts. Speak less, so your words may weigh more. And in the stillness you embrace, may your influence quietly rise. Pausing before you speak shows strength and mastery over impulse. There is a deep wisdom in restraint, in allowing a moment of silence to stretch before words fall from your lips. In a world where everyone is rushing to respond, where voices overlap in a race to be heard, the one who pauses stands apart. That pause is not hesitation, it is discipline. It is a signal that you are not ruled by impulse, but by intention. It shows that you honor both your thoughts and the ears that will receive them. When you pause, you remind yourself that words carry consequence. Once spoken, they cannot be retrieved. Once released, they live on in memory, in hearts, sometimes even in wounds. A pause is a shield against regret. It is a breath that gives you the chance to weigh your response, to ask yourself whether it builds or destroys, whether it uplifts or diminishes. That moment of silence is the difference between scattering words carelessly and placing them with care. Impulse is quick and unfiltered. It is born from emotion without thought, from reaction without reflection. But influence requires something greater. It demands the discipline to hold back, to gather your truth, and to deliver it in a way that resonates rather than merely reacts. Mastery over impulse is mastery over self. And there is no greater influence than the influence of someone who governs themselves with wisdom. In every conversation, there are moments when silence becomes a teacher. The pause before a response gives others the space to reflect on what has been said. It signals that you are not dismissing them, but honoring their voice. It tells them that you are not rushing to defend or to argue, but choosing to understand before you contribute. In that way, silence is not just mastery over yourself. It is also respect for others. That respect deepens connection, and that connection multiplies your influence. When you do not pause, when you let words spill without thought, you risk drowning your message in excess. But when you wait, when you breathe before speaking, you create power in your delivery. A pause before words is like a drumbeat before a song. It heightens attention, it makes people lean in. It prepares the room to listen. That simple act of holding back turns your words into something more than sound. They become a moment. They become an event. Consider how often regret follows words spoken in haste. How many conflicts could have been softened? How many relationships saved? How many bridges left unburned if silence had been chosen first? The pause allows emotions to cool, anger to dissolve, pride to soften. In that moment of stillness, clarity rises. You are no longer ruled by the storm inside you, but by the calm you chose to cultivate. And when calm speaks, it carries authority. The strength of a pause also shows others that you value thoughtfulness. People begin to notice that your words are never rushed, that they are not tossed into the air carelessly. They recognize that if you speak, it must be worth listening to. That reputation alone can make silence your greatest ally. You do not need to constantly prove your worth through endless speech. The pause itself becomes proof that you have control, that you have perspective, that you are not bound by the need to react. So let silence be the ground on which your words are planted. Let the pause before your speech be the evidence of your strength. Mastery over impulse is not a weakness, it is the highest form of power. Anyone can speak in haste. It takes courage to wait. It takes wisdom to pause. And when you finally release your words after that silence, they will carry the weight of your strength, the clarity of your thought, and the mark of your influence. Influence is built not by noise, but by clarity and timing. Too often we confuse volume with authority and constant speaking with impact. But the truth is, the world does not remember the loudest voice. It remembers the one that spoke with precision at the right moment. Words without clarity are like clouds drifting across the sky, present but unable to bring rain. Words spoken without timing are like seeds thrown on barren ground, unable to grow. Influence demands more than endless talking. It requires the discipline to sharpen your words and the wisdom to choose when to release them. Noise may grab attention for a second, but it fades just as quickly. People forget chatter because it carries no shape, no focus, no substance. But clarity cuts through the clutter. It reaches the heart because it is direct, it is unclouded, it is sure of itself. When you speak with clarity, you remove the excess and leave only the essence. Your listeners do not have to search for your meaning. They feel it. They know it. They carry it with them long after the sound of your voice is gone. Timing is just as powerful as clarity. There are moments when silence speaks better than speech, when patience gives your words greater strength than haste ever could. To speak before the time is to waste your truth. To speak too late is to miss the chance. But to wait, to measure, to choose your moment, that is when influence is born. The right word at the right time can heal a wound, settle a conflict, spark a vision, or awaken courage. Influence is not about filling every space with sound. It is about shaping spaces with presence. And presence grows when you know when to speak and when to stay silent. When you release your words into the quiet, they are not drowned by noise, but magnified by the stillness. That is the art of timing. It transforms ordinary speech into unforgettable truth. Think of how water carves valleys in smooth stone. It does not rush all at once in chaos. It flows with precision. It moves with rhythm. It arrives exactly where it needs to be. In the same way, words delivered with clarity and timing carry a force far greater than a flood of noise. They shape hearts, they change directions, they influence futures. Noise is often born of insecurity, the need to prove, the desire to be noticed. But true influence requires no such display. It comes from a calm confidence that does not need to speak constantly to be felt. Silence becomes your canvas, clarity your paint, timing your brush. Together they create a picture that lasts. When you speak with clarity, people are not confused. When you speak with timing, people are not overwhelmed. They receive your message in a way they can grasp, and in a moment they are ready to hold it. That is why clarity and timing must walk together. One without the other is incomplete. Clear words delivered too soon may be ignored. Perfect timing with muddled words loses power. But when both align, influence becomes inevitable. So remember this truth. Influence is not measured by how much you speak, but by how much your words endure. It is not in the noise you make, but in the clarity you give. It is not in constant talking, but in speaking at the right time. Be clear, be patient, be deliberate. When you speak less, but with purpose, your words will not just be heard, they will be remembered. And when they are remembered, they will shape the lives of others long after silence has returned. Strategic silence commands attention without demanding it. There is a certain mystery in a person who does not feel the need to fill every moment with words. Their stillness draws the eye, their composure stirs curiosity, and their silence itself speaks of power. When someone enters a room and chooses not to rush into conversation, people take notice. When they speak less, their presence itself begins to do the speaking. That is the essence of influence that grows not from noise, but from restraint. Attention is not something you always have to chase. Sometimes it is something you quietly invite. Strategic silence is that invitation. It tells others that you are not desperate for their approval, that you are not competing for their focus. Instead, you stand rooted, calm, and sure. And it is that very calmness that captures attention more effectively than any loud proclamation could. When the world is loud, the quiet becomes magnetic. This kind of silence is not passive. It is not the silence of absence, but the silence of intention. It is a deliberate choice, a strategy, a form of communication without words. By choosing when not to speak, you create space for others to wonder, to anticipate, to lean closer. In that anticipation, your influence grows. People remember those who do not rush to prove themselves, because such people show confidence without arrogance and power without force. Strategic silence changes the rhythm of a conversation. When everyone is talking at once and you choose to remain still, suddenly the air shifts. Others begin to look in your direction, waiting to see what you will say. And when you finally break that silence, your words are not treated as ordinary. They are received as precious. They are measured against the stillness that came before, which makes them shine brighter, echo longer, and weigh heavier. Silence also protects your dignity. In the heat of anger or the fire of debate, silence keeps you from giving away your strength. The one who shouts first often reveals weakness, but the one who holds back reveals control. Strategic silence is like armor. It shields you from wasting energy on empty battles. It guards you from words you might later regret, and it allows you to maintain your composure while others unravel theirs. And in that restraint, your influence quietly rises above the noise. Think of how silence commands attention in music. A sudden pause before the climax makes the listener hold their breath. The silence itself becomes part of the melody. In the same way, strategic silence is not a gap, but a note of its own. It deepens the meaning of what comes before and amplifies the impact of what comes after. Without silence, the song would lose its depth. Without silence, speech would lose its strength. When you use silence as strategy, you also invite reflection. You give others the chance to think, to feel, to process. You respect their need to absorb what has been said instead of rushing to overpower them with more. And because of that, your influence does not feel like force. It feels like guidance. It does not demand attention, it earns it. It does not shout for respect, it receives it. There is a quiet authority in those who master this art. They do not need to prove their presence. Their silence does it for them. They do not need to fight for recognition. Their restraint ensures it. They do not demand attention with noise. Their calm composure makes attention come to them naturally. So let silence be your strength, not your weakness. Use it with intention, use it with wisdom, use it with purpose. Speak when it matters and stay still when it does not. In that balance, your influence will grow. In that strategy, your presence will command respect. And in that silence, you will find that you hold more power than you ever could in endless noise. Speaking less allows others to lean in and truly listen. There is a natural hunger in people to pay attention when words are not thrown carelessly, but are chosen with care. When you do not overwhelm a moment with speech, you invite others into the space of curiosity. They begin to wonder what you will say next. They begin to prepare themselves to receive, and in that quiet expectancy, your influence is born. The human mind is not designed to hold endless streams of noise. Too many words at once create clutter. They blur meaning, they dilute power, they tire the listener. But when you speak less, you strip away the excess and leave only what matters. Your words become clear, sharp, and memorable. People no longer have to search for the meaning you intend. It is right there, simple yet strong, because you allowed silence to give it shape. When you speak less, you also give others the gift of reflection. Instead of rushing them from one idea to another, you allow your message to settle. You let it breathe. You let it echo inside them until it becomes part of their own thought. This is how true influence works. It is not about overwhelming people with your voice. It is about allowing your words to take root within them, to grow into their own understanding, to shift how they see themselves and the world. Listening is not passive. It is active, it is alive, it is sacred. But people cannot listen deeply if they are drowned in speech. Speaking less makes listening possible. It transforms your audience from mere hearers into participants. They are no longer spectators watching your words fly past them. They become travelers walking alongside your thought, step by step, because you gave them room to keep up. There is also trust that grows from speaking less. When you do not feel the need to say everything, you signal confidence. You show that you do not need to force your message to be heard. You trust that the weight of your words will carry them without extra decoration. That trust transfers to the listener. They begin to believe that what you do share must matter, that it carries value, that it is worth holding on to. We all know someone who talks endlessly but leaves us with nothing to remember. And we all know someone who speaks little yet leaves us with lines we carry for a lifetime. The difference is not in brilliance but in restraint. The one who speaks less gives their words the dignity to stand alone. They allow silence to frame them. They allow the listener to absorb them. And because of that, their influence is deeper and longer lasting. Speaking less is also an act of humility. It acknowledges that the world does not need to hear your every thought. It respects the presence of others. It values their perspective. It makes space for their voices. When you do not rush to fill silence, you invite others to share themselves. And that invitation creates connection. People do not only listen more deeply to you, they feel more willing to open themselves to you. Influence is not just what you say, it is also what you make possible in others. So much of leadership, teaching, and guidance is not about dominating a room with endless speech. It is about knowing when to step back, when to hold silence, when to let fewer words travel farther. People lean in when there is space to lean into. They listen more when there is less noise to fight through. They remember more when there is less to forget. That is the beauty of speaking less. It is not silence for its own sake. It is silence with purpose, silence that amplifies, silence that allows listening to bloom. So let your words be fewer but fuller. Let your silence shape the spaces between them. Trust that if you speak with care, people will lean in, they will listen, and they will remember. Speak less so that when you do speak, your influence will echo longer than endless noise ever could. Silence reflects confidence and amplifies presence. There is a quiet strength in the person who does not feel compelled to fill every corner of the room with their voice. They stand as if they know their worth, as if they understand that their power does not depend on constant explanation or endless speech. Confidence is not always shown in the loud declaration of who you are. More often, it is revealed in the calm assurance that you do not need to prove yourself at all. Silence becomes a mirror of that assurance. It shows that you are steady, that you are rooted, that you can let the world turn without rushing to shout your place in it. In a gathering, people often pay attention to the loudest voice, but they remember the one who speaks with intention. The quiet figure who listens before speaking, the one who does not rush but waits, commands a different kind of respect. Their presence grows without force. Their silence itself fills the room. And when they finally speak, every ear is ready. That is not weakness. That is power clothed in stillness. It is the kind of presence that does not fade quickly because it is not tied to noise. It is tied to depth. Silence is a mark of confidence because it says you do not fear being overlooked. You are not worried that your worth will vanish if you are not constantly noticed. You know that your presence speaks even when your voice does not. That kind of confidence is magnetic. It draws others in because it does not chase. It allows people to sense that there is more beneath the surface, more behind the quiet eyes, more within the calm spirit. And presence is not just about being seen. It is about being felt. A person who fills space with chatter may be seen, but the one who allows silence to breathe is felt. People sense their composure, their patience, their balance. They sense that such a person is not moved by the need to perform, not unsettled by the noise of the world, but anchored in their own strength. That presence lingers. It influences without effort, without demand. When you choose silence, you also give yourself the chance to observe. You notice the details others miss. You hear what lies beneath words. You read the room with sharper clarity. That awareness adds to your presence. It allows you to respond not with noise, but with precision. And when you do respond, your words are not scattered guesses, but guided arrows that land exactly where they need to. That accuracy, born from silence, amplifies your impact far more than constant speech ever could. Confidence in silence also shields you from the temptation of over-explaining. Insecure hearts often feel the need to justify, to prove, to explain every action in hopes of being accepted. But true confidence rests in simplicity. It trusts that action's presence and truth will speak louder than attempts to persuade. Silence becomes a statement: I do not need to force you to believe me, because my presence already speaks for itself. That quiet strength leaves an impression far deeper than a flood of words. Think of the moments when silence has changed the air around you. A teacher pausing before sharing wisdom. A leader holding a room in stillness before announcing change. A loved one looking into your eyes without rushing to speak. Those moments remind us that silence does not reduce presence. It amplifies it. It makes the moment more sacred, the connection more meaningful, the message more powerful. In this way, silence is not a retreat, but a tool. It shapes your influence. It magnifies your strength. It makes your presence undeniable. When you are comfortable in silence, you show the world that you are not dependent on approval, not desperate for attention, not anxious to prove your value. You are confident enough to let your stillness speak. And when it does, it speaks louder than noise ever could. So embrace silence as a reflection of your confidence. Let it become part of the way you walk into rooms, the way you carry yourself, the way you influence others. Trust that your presence is amplified not by endless words, but by the strength of your stillness. And when the time comes to speak, let your words rise from that silence with clarity and power. One well-chosen word after silence can shift hearts and change outcomes. There is a kind of magic in the way silence prepares the soil for speech. It creates a tension, a pause, a breath that makes people lean closer, waiting for what comes next. In that waiting, a single word or a short phrase can land with a power that endless sentences cannot achieve. The strength is not only in the word itself, but in the silence that framed it, in the stillness that gave it space to shine. When you speak after silence, your words do not fall into clutter. They fall into expectation. People are listening differently. They are not distracted. They are not rushing ahead. They are present in the moment. That presence makes your words heavier, more meaningful, more unforgettable. A word spoken in haste can vanish like smoke in the wind, but a word spoken after silence lands like a stone in still water, sending ripples far and wide. History remembers not the constant talkers, but the ones who spoke at the right moment with the right words. A leader calm in a crowd with a single line, a parent guiding a child with one truth, a friend whispering encouragement in silence when no speech could heal. Those are the words that stay alive. Those are the words that live in memory, not because they were many, but because they were chosen carefully and delivered with timing born of silence. This is the true art of influence. It is not in trying to overwhelm others with the sheer volume of what you say. It is in crafting a moment where silence draws every eye, where anticipation fills every ear, and then breaking that silence with a word that matters. It is like striking a bell in a quiet temple. The sound lingers because the silence made it clear. Without the silence, the note would be lost. Words after silence are not only powerful to others, they are powerful for you as well. They remind you that you do not need to speak endlessly to make an impact. They remind you that value is not measured in quantity but in precision. They remind you that one word spoken at the right time can carry more truth, more love, more direction than 1,000 spoken at the wrong time. It takes discipline to wait, to hold back, to let silence lead. But when you do, you learn the rhythm of speech and stillness. You begin to understand that silence does not weaken communication. It strengthens it. It becomes the pause that gives meaning to the message, the quiet that turns ordinary words into sacred ones. In this way, silence becomes your partner, your ally, your stage. And when the moment comes, your word shines brighter because silence has already built the stage for it. The beauty of this truth is that anyone can practice it. You do not need grand speeches or perfect sentences. You only need the courage to trust silence and the wisdom to choose words with care. Even a single word, love, hope, peace, courage, can be life-changing when spoken at the right time after silence. It can mend what was broken, ignite what was dim, awaken what was sleeping. So do not underestimate the power of less. Do not believe that influence is measured in how much you speak. One word born from silence, delivered with purpose, can shift the course of a moment, a relationship, even a life. The silence makes the word visible. The silence makes the word powerful. The silence makes the word unforgettable. Speak less, and when you finally speak, let your words be the ones that change the air, the ones that touch the heart, the ones that shape the future. Silence, my friends, is not emptiness. It is a force, a teacher, a companion that strengthens every word you choose to speak. We have seen that it gives weight to your message, steadiness to your spirit, clarity to your voice, and dignity to your presence. When you embrace silence, you are not withholding yourself from the world. You are giving the best of yourself to it. You are choosing not to scatter your truth, but to place it where it can be felt, where it can be remembered, where it can transform. The lesson is simple but profound. Speak less, so that when you do speak, your words shine brighter. Trust the stillness between sentences, the pause before your answer, the quiet that carries your presence. Let your silence command attention, and let your voice, when it finally rises, carry the power of timing, confidence, and truth. That is how influence is born. That is how hearts are touched. That is how change begins. So step forward with courage, not to fill the air with noise, but to let silence become your strength. May your pauses be wise, may your words be clear, and may your presence always speak even when your lips do not. I wish you good luck on this journey of speaking less and influencing more. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for listening. Hello, my dear friend. There comes a time in every soul's journey when the wind may rise and the crowd may roar, and the voices around you call for explanations that your spirit was never meant to give. In that moment, hush your heart and listen close. Listen not to the noise, but to the truth that hums softly in your chest. Sometimes, child, you don't have to prove yourself. Not to them, not to the world, not even to the doubts that linger like shadows just before dawn. People may come with their questions and their measuring sticks and their tired eyes searching for validation dressed as conversation. But you are not a question that needs answering. You are not a test waiting to be graded. You are a quiet fire. You are an answered prayer wrapped in skin. You are already whole, already worthy, already enough. I have known what it feels like to walk into rooms and feel the weight of silence pressed down like stone, to feel like you must speak louder, stand taller, smile wider just to earn a place. But let me tell you, you were born with a place. Your existence is not on trial. Your presence is not a courtroom. You do not need to prove your pain. You do not need to explain your peace. You do not need to justify the way you shine. There is strength in stillness. There is power in choosing silence when others demand noise. You do not have to shrink yourself to fit someone else's view. You do not have to perform worthiness. Your dignity is not performance art. It is not a script you memorize to be accepted. It is your birthright. And those who cannot see your light unless it blinds them are not your audience. There is a quiet truth that lives within each of us. A gentle voice that whispers in moments when the world becomes loud with expectation. It reminds us that our worth is not something to be proven, not something to be negotiated, not something to be displayed for applause or approval. It simply is. It was given long before the world taught us to chase validation. That inner truth, though often hidden beneath layers of fear, comparison, and doubt, remains steady like a river beneath ice. And when you learn to trust it, you begin to understand the beauty of not needing to prove yourself to anyone. So many people spend their days trying to meet standards set by someone else's vision. They twist themselves to fit into shapes that don't belong to their spirit. They chase praise, fearing that without it, their value disappears. But the truth is, no amount of applause will make you more worthy, just as no amount of criticism can take that worth away. You were enough before they noticed you. You are enough even if they never do. Sometimes we try so hard to explain ourselves, to show why we're good, why we matter, why we should be chosen, accepted, loved. We speak louder, work harder, stretch thinner. But what if just for a moment, we stopped chasing the nods of others and looked inward instead? What if we allowed ourselves the quiet dignity of simply being, without performance, without explanation? There is something deeply powerful in knowing that you don't have to prove your light for it to shine. The sun does not beg the sky to notice. The moon does not explain its phases, and still they rise. You have something sacred inside you, a knowing that doesn't need outside confirmation. That knowing is your anchor. It will keep you rooted when the world tries to sway you with questions like, are you sure you're enough? Or why haven't you done more? It will remind you that you are not a checklist. You are not a resume. You are not someone else's expectation. You are a soul. You are a story. You are a truth that stands even when no one claps. This does not mean you shouldn't grow. It does not mean you should never respond to challenge. But growth from within is different from striving to be enough for others. Growth is rooted in love. Proving is rooted in fear. And fear will always leave you exhausted and empty. Love, self-love, self-trust will fill you up from the inside and let your strength rise without noise. You don't need to speak every time someone doubts you. You don't need to show up to every fight meant to test your worth. Some battles are invitations to prove who you are not. Walk away. Let your peace be your answer. Let your life speak in silence. Let your consistency become your legacy. And let your soul rest in the truth that you are already whole. Because the moment you stop seeking to prove, you start learning to be. And being, real, honest, quietly powerful being, is the most fearless thing you will ever do. There is a sacred strength in silence, a kind of quiet that doesn't mean weakness, but instead reveals a deeper wisdom. In a world that constantly demands explanations, defenses, and proof, choosing silence becomes an act of courage. It is not the absence of response, but the presence of self-trust. When you know who you are, when you are rooted in your own truth, you realize you do not always need to speak just because someone questions you. You do not need to explain your journey to every wandering gaze or justify your path to every stranger's expectation. Sometimes, the loudest declaration of confidence is the silence that says, I owe no one an answer. We are often taught that speaking up means strength, that defending yourself proves intelligence, that explaining yourself earns respect, but there is another kind of strength, the strength of restraint. It is the kind that allows you to hold your peace when the moment would rather pull you into noise. It is the kind that reminds you that your life is not a stage and your heart is not on trial. You are not here to satisfy every curious voice or silence every doubting eye. Some people will challenge your silence, mistaking it for uncertainty. Let them. They do not know the weight of all the times you spoke only to be misunderstood, or the effort it takes to remain calm when provoked. Silence, when chosen in self-awareness, is not surrender, it is command. It says, I know who I am well enough not to be shaken by who you think I should be. There will be moments when the noise around you tries to draw you out, arguments, assumptions, provocations, but in those moments, ask yourself, is this about truth or about ego? Because if it is ego, silence is often the wiser choice. You do not have to dance every time someone plays music you did not ask for. You do not have to show up to every conversation designed to reduce you to someone else's comfort zone. Your silence can be your shield. Your silence can be your sanctuary. And within that silence grows clarity. Without the distractions of reaction, you begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You begin to understand that proving yourself to others is often a loop with no end. The ones who see you will not need proof. The ones who doubt you will not be satisfied, no matter how much you offer. So offer nothing. Let your actions speak. Let your energy speak. Let your consistency speak, and let your silence speak. This kind of restraint is not cold. It is not distant. It is deeply aware. It is choosing where to place your energy, choosing when to respond and when to preserve. Because your energy is sacred, your peace is priceless. You have every right to protect it with your quiet. Not everything deserves your voice. Not every comment deserves your time. And not every moment needs to be filled with words. So the next time you find yourself in a room full of noise, in a situation demanding a reaction, pause and breathe. Ask yourself if this moment truly requires your voice or if your silence is already enough. And if it is, trust that. Rest in that. Because sometimes choosing not to prove yourself is the boldest truth of all. We are often taught that every challenge must be answered, that every question deserves a reply, that every doubt thrown our way is an invitation to defend ourselves. But life, in its quiet wisdom, reveals something different. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every moment of judgment requires your presence. Sometimes, the most powerful decision you can make is to preserve your energy by walking away. You do not need to stand on every battlefield, especially the ones built only to drain your light. When someone questions your worth, it's easy to feel the need to respond, to prove, to perform, to show them why they're wrong. But the deeper truth is, the more you seek to prove, the more you give away your peace. Your energy is not infinite. Your strength, though deep and enduring, is still human. And so there comes a time when you must learn to conserve your spirit, to honor your boundaries, and to stop giving explanations to those who never truly listen. It takes a certain maturity to discern between what deserves your voice and what only wants your reaction. Because not every challenge is rooted in truth. Some are born out of others' insecurities, some out of their need to feel superior, and some are nothing more than distractions dressed as debates. You are not responsible for healing someone else's misunderstanding of you. You are not responsible for committing people who are committed to not seeing you clearly. When you chase every shadow cast on your name, you move away from your purpose and closer to their noise. Letting go of the need to engage in every test of your worth is not avoidance. It is wisdom. It is choosing the higher path, not out of fear, but out of grace. There is strength in deciding where your energy belongs. There is power in stepping back from chaos, not because you cannot handle it, but because you know it is beneath the dignity of your spirit. Your time and peace are precious, and sometimes protecting them means simply walking away. You have nothing to prove to those who don't recognize your value, your presence, your journey, your intentions. These are sacred. When you waste energy trying to convince those who are unwilling to understand, you lose sight of the ones who already believe in you. The ones who matter do not need constant reminders. They feel your truth in your presence. They witness your integrity in your silence. They see your worth in the way you carry yourself, even when you say nothing at all. Every moment you do not spend proving, you spend growing. Every time you choose not to respond, you choose to rise. Let the doubters doubt. Let the critics speak. Let the noise pass. You remain whole, strong, rooted, because real strength is not shown in how loudly you defend yourself, but in how confidently you carry yourself without needing to. And so walk away from battles that cost more than they teach. Walk away from judgment that was never meant to understand. Walk away from the idea that your value increases with struggle. It does not. You are always enough. There is a quiet kind of wisdom that reveals itself when you stop trying to meet people where their judgment lives. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in peace. Because walking away is not defeat, it is grace, it is strength. It is the voice of your soul reminding you that you do not belong in every room, especially the ones that require you to shrink in order to fit. When you leave the space where you are not honored, you are not losing something, you are protecting something. You are honoring yourself. The world often teaches us to stay and explain, stay and prove, stay and try harder. But not every space is worthy of your presence. Not every relationship, conversation, or environment deserves the fullness of your being. When your energy is constantly spent proving your intentions, defending your spirit, or explaining your worth, that is not love. That is survival. And you were not born to survive your life. You were born to live it, breathe in it, rise in it. There is a gentle power in refusing to let someone else's misunderstanding of you become your truth. You do not have to stay just to teach someone how to value you. That is not your job. Your job is to show up fully where you are seen, to grow deeply where you are nourished, and to speak softly where you are heard. And if a space cannot offer you that, you can offer yourself the door. You can exit with grace and never once apologize for choosing peace over pride. Walking away is not running away. It is arriving at yourself. It is coming home to the place within you that remembers who you are, even when others forget. There will always be places that try to rewrite your narrative, try to paint you with their own fears and insecurities. But you are not their canvas. You are not made for their brushes. You do not have to carry their misunderstanding like a burden across your back. Let it go. Let it fall. Walk on. You may find that the most growth happens not when you stay and struggle to be understood, but when you leave and give yourself the room to simply be. Distance can be healing. Silence can be sacred. Separation can be the soil where self-respect blooms again. When you release the need to be validated by those who never saw you clearly, you begin to see yourself with greater clarity. And in that space of solitude and stillness, you begin to rebuild, not to become someone new, but to return to the truth of who you've always been. Even the strongest souls need rest. Even the boldest hearts need protection. You do not owe anyone your constant explaining. You do not owe the world your exhaustion. What you owe is to yourself. The grace to know when it's time to stop giving your light to places that only want to dim it. Choose instead to walk into the spaces that echo with love, with understanding, with quiet welcome. Your soul knows the difference. And when you walk away, do so without looking back. Do so without bitterness. Do so with your head high, not because you are proud, but because you are free. There is a kind of confidence that does not seek attention, a quiet certainty that does not need applause. It lives in stillness, in presence, in the way a person carries themselves without asking the world to look. This kind of confidence is not loud or boastful. It is soft but unshakable. It comes from knowing who you are without needing to convince anyone else. When you no longer search for mirrors in the eyes of others, when your reflection lives in your own truth, you understand that the deepest confidence does not beg to be seen. It simply is. Many people chase approval like air, afraid that without constant reassurance they will disappear, but that fear is born from forgetting that you were already whole before anyone noticed, forgetting that you carried value long before the world handed out names and labels and grades. True confidence begins the moment you stop trying to prove that you belong. You do not have to enter every room with credentials in your hands and your past in your mouth. You do not need to explain how far you've come just to be accepted. You being there is enough. Your breath is enough. Your presence is enough. The quietest confidence lives in action, not announcement. It shows itself in how you move, how you listen, how you walk away when a situation no longer serves your peace. It shows in the calm behind your eyes when others try to test your patience or question your place. You don't raise your voice. You don't raise your fists. You raise your standards. And that says more than any defense ever could. You become a presence, not a performance. And while the world might praise bold declarations and loud demonstrations of worth, there is something even more powerful in subtlety, in the grace of restraint, in the ability to be sure of yourself without making others feel small. When you have nothing to prove, you stop performing, you stop contorting, you start becoming. You start living from a place that no longer demands a spotlight. And yet, you shine. Let your silence speak of your strength. Let your peace echo louder than your explanations. You don't have to convince anyone of your value when your life already reveals it. Your truth is not a story for everyone. Your growth is not a broadcast. There are parts of your journey that are sacred, meant only for you to understand. And that is more than enough. This kind of confidence is not built overnight. It is built in moments of quiet decision, in choosing yourself again and again, even when others do not. It is born from the deep work of healing and unlearning, of letting go of the belief that love must be earned, that belonging must be proven, that presence must be justified. It is in the still mornings when you rise and know that you are doing your best, even if no one else sees it. It is in the nights when you rest without guilt, because your worth is not tied to how much you produce or how loud you speak. So hold that quiet strength. Walk in it. Speak from it. Let others wonder, if they must, how you carry yourself so calmly, so confidently. Let them question. You do not need to answer. Because when you truly believe in who you are, your life becomes the answer. And so, as you move forward on your journey, remember this: you do not have to prove yourself to be powerful, to be worthy, to be enough. Your truth is not measured by how loudly you defend it. Your value is not decided by who notices you. Sometimes your silence will say more than words ever could. Sometimes your calm will carry more weight than argument, and sometimes your decision to walk away will be the greatest declaration of your self-respect. Live rooted in your quiet strength. Let your peace be your presence. Let your confidence be still but unshakable. You are not here to convince the world of your light. You are here to shine anyway. Good luck on your path. Walk it with grace, and thank you for allowing these words to meet your heart. Ladies and gentlemen, your words are seeds. Speak life, not lack. That truth is not just poetic, it is powerful. Everything we say out loud, everything we murmur in the quiet corners of our minds, plant something deep in the soil of our future. The soil is your spirit, your heart, your mind, and the harvest is the life you wake up to every single morning. If you constantly say, I can't, you are planting weeds where flowers should bloom. If every day you rise and declare, I am tired, I am not enough, I am unlucky, then you are watering the roots of doubt and feeding the vines of fear. But if with the same breath you declare, I am growing, I am learning, I am still here, you shift the energy. You shift the season. That is how life begins to turn. So many of us walk through this world holding on to words spoken by others, never realizing we have the power to speak over ourselves. We wear old labels like second skin, labels that were never ours to carry. Somebody said you were too loud. Somebody said you were too quiet. Somebody said you'd never make it. And somewhere along the line, you started to echo that lie. But baby, let me tell you, lies lose power the moment you stop repeating them. Stop speaking death to your own dreams. Stop narrating your life with the language of defeat. You deserve more than recycled hopelessness. You deserve new words, words drenched in truth and power and promise. What you speak becomes what you see. If you keep declaring lack, you'll find more lack. If you say nothing ever works out for me, your mind will start to look for evidence to prove you right. It's not magic, it's mindset. We live in the stories we tell ourselves, and if your story is filled with brokenness, pain, and never enough, then even the blessings that come your way will feel like burden. You'll miss the beauty because your mouth refused to bless it. Think of your words like prayers with wings. They go out into the atmosphere looking for a landing place. When you say, I am worthy, that word travels, it builds, it grows, it gathers power each time you repeat it. When you say, I am whole, even while I heal, you speak to your own cells, your own spirit, your future self. Life bends to the language of belief. So speak like someone who expects things to change. Speak like someone who believes heaven is listening. It is easy to speak life when everything is blooming. It's easy when the bank account is full, when love is pouring in, when the body feels strong and the path is smooth. But real power is learning to speak life in the drought. Real faith is saying, I am still blessed, when your back is against the wall and you're crying in the shower. That's the test. That's a stretch. That's the moment when your words become weapons, not against others, but against despair, against darkness, against giving up. Because speaking life is not about ignoring pain. It's about refusing to let pain write the final verse. When you wake up in the morning, the first voice you hear should not be your fear. The first thing you say should not be a complaint. Catch yourself, rewind the tape, start over, say, I am alive, I am chosen, I am here for a reason. Speak it until your own bones remember. Speak it until your mind aligns with your mission. Speak it until the atmosphere around you begins to shift. People may not understand why you speak the way you do. They may say you're being unrealistic, too positive, too hopeful. Let them talk. You're not speaking for them. You're not planting seeds in their garden. You're tending to your own. You're cultivating a life of fullness, of abundance, of joy that doesn't rely on outside validation. And when your harvest comes, when those seeds break through the ground and stretch toward the light, you'll know. It was your voice that made the difference. It was your decision to speak life instead of lack. Faith isn't blind, it's bold. Walk like it's already done. That kind of faith isn't timid or quiet. It doesn't whisper from the back row, hoping someone else will show the way. No, bold faith stands tall in the storm, speaks truth in the silence, and takes steps before the path even appears. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about trusting that even in the chaos, the promise still stands. We've been taught that faith means waiting for signs, waiting for confirmation, waiting for the right time. But bold faith doesn't just wait, it moves. Bold faith doesn't sit still, crossing its fingers, hoping something shifts. It gets up. It shows up. It walks into rooms it doesn't feel ready for and still says, I belong here. Bold faith doesn't ask permission. It's not about having all the answers. It's about walking with certainty, even when the questions are loud. Faith like that is not blind. It sees deeper than sight. It sees beyond what eyes can measure and what logic can explain. Blindness implies lack of awareness, but bold faith is deeply aware. Aware of the possibility that exists just beyond fear. Aware of the power that rises when you move without a map, but with a mission. You're not walking in the dark, you're walking in trust. You're not hoping something good might happen, you're knowing that something good is already unfolding. There's a difference between hoping and knowing. Hope waits on the edge, knowing walks through the door. Faith isn't about crossing your arms and saying, maybe one day. It's about opening your mouth and saying, today is the day. I don't see the whole picture, but I see enough to move. That's bold. That's courage. That's the kind of faith that shakes the ground. You've got to walk like it's already done, not because you're faking confidence, but because you're grounded in conviction. When you move like it's already done, you speak differently, you plan differently. You carry yourself with the quiet authority of someone who knows that delays are not denials and that closed doors can be detours to better ones. Walking in bold faith means you don't let the current situation define your next step. You let the vision guide you, not the visible. When you walk like it's already done, people might look at you strange. They might wonder how you can smile when things are falling apart, how you can speak with hope when the odds are stacked. But what they don't see is what you've been building on the inside, the trust, the resilience, the conversations with God in the middle of the night when doubt was loud, but faith was louder. They don't see the inner work, the spiritual muscle you've been training behind closed doors. That's the kind of faith that doesn't need an audience. It's private, but it moves in public. This world will give you 1,000 reasons to shrink, to doubt, to hesitate, but bold faith will give you one reason to rise, and that one reason is enough. Because it only takes one moment, one word, one step to change everything. Bold faith doesn't need evidence to begin. It creates evidence through movement. It walks before the waters part. It shows up before the invitation is written. It says, I'm ready, even when the world says, you're not qualified. That's what it means to walk like it's already done. It means your steps are not measured by fear, but by intention. It means your energy doesn't shift based on circumstances. It means you speak with the authority of someone who has already seen the promise in their spirit, even if their hands haven't touched it yet. You speak it, live it, embody it, because deep down, you already know. It's not about what the world says is possible. It's about what your spirit knows is promised. So you rise, you move, you show up with vision in your heart and fire in your bones. You walk with your head high, not in arrogance, but in alignment. You're not pretending things are done. You're declaring that they are already in motion. That's what bold faith does. It sees the finish line while standing at the starting gate. It praises in the middle. It celebrates before the answer comes. It dances before. Bold faith doesn't need to be loud to be strong. It just needs to be real. Wisdom whispers when noise fades. Learn to be still. In a world that praises hustle, rewards speed, and glorifies constant motion, stillness almost feels like rebellion. But wisdom, the kind that changes lives, the kind that speaks from a higher place, doesn't shout. It doesn't compete for your attention. It waits for the noise to die down, for the chaos to pause, for the ego to sit in silence. And in that quiet, it whispers truth. You can't hear direction when you're drowning in distraction. You can't receive clarity when your spirit is constantly in a rush. That's the thing about wisdom. It doesn't force itself into your life. You have to create space for it. Space in your mind, space in your schedule, space in your heart. You have to slow down long enough to listen. Really listen, not just to the world around you, but to the world within. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It's the presence of awareness. It's when you stop reacting and start reflecting. It's when you don't just ask questions, but you learn to sit with them. We want answers fast, packaged and pretty, but real wisdom doesn't come with overnight shipping. It arrives in the waiting, in the wrestling, in the wondering, and often it comes not with a shout, but with a soft, steady knowing that only stillness can reveal. When you learn to be still, you learn the language of your own soul. You hear the fears that you've been running from, the dreams you've been ignoring, the truth you've been too busy to notice. You start to recognize which thoughts are rooted in fear and which are grounded in truth. You stop mistaking noise for guidance Because just because something is loud doesn't mean it's wise. Just because something is urgent doesn't mean it's important. And just because everyone is running doesn't mean you need to move. Stillness takes courage. It requires you to trust that even when you're not doing, something sacred is still happening. The world will tell you to go faster, to do more, to push harder. But wisdom is found in the pause, in the deep breath, in the choice to sit instead of sprint, to listen instead of lead, to be before you become. And that kind of stillness is where transformation begins. In the quiet, you begin to separate what is true from what is temporary. You begin to see what actually matters. The opinions of others start to fade. The pressure to perform starts to loosen its grip. You begin to sense a rhythm deeper than the one society plays for you. It's the rhythm of your spirit, the divine cadence of purpose that only wisdom can reveal. And you can't dance to that rhythm if you're too busy trying to keep up with someone else's beat. Stillness is not weakness, it's strength in disguise. It's where decisions are made that won't unravel under pressure. It's where peace becomes power. It's where you stop chasing and start choosing. Wisdom doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right thing at the right time, for the right reason. And you can't know what that is until you learn how to stop, how to breathe, how to be still. When you finally get quiet enough, you realize how loud your own mind has been. You notice the stories you've been repeating, the doubts you've been feeding, the beliefs that no longer serve you. And in that awareness, wisdom enters like a friend, not to judge, but to guide, not to control, but to clarify. It reminds you that you don't have to push every door open. Some doors open not by striving, but by aligning. And alignment can only be found in stillness. There is strength in not having all the answers. There is wisdom in sitting with questions and trusting the process. In that quiet place, something beautiful unfolds. Not always fast, not always loud, but always true. And when the world grows noisy again, as it always does, you'll move differently. You'll respond instead of react. You'll carry the stillness with you, not as a place, but as a power. You are the blessing you've been waiting for. Declare it daily. Too often, we're taught to look outside ourselves for answers, for rescue, for love, for validation. We wait for someone else to see us, to choose us, to open the door we're meant to walk through. But the truth is, the blessing is not coming from the outside. It is always lived inside you. It's not in a person, not in a job, not in a moment. It's in your breath. It's in your being. It's in your decision to believe that you, right here and right now, are already enough. When you declare that truth daily, you shift your posture toward life. You stop begging and start claiming. You stop hoping to be chosen and start choosing yourself. There's power in the words you speak over your life, especially when they come from a place of recognition rather than desperation. You are not lacking anything to begin. You are not missing a single thing to rise. The blessing isn't on its way. It's already present, waiting for you to acknowledge it, to own it, to walk in it fully. You were born with a gift, a light, a purpose that no one else can copy. But until you start seeing yourself as a blessing, you'll continue to shrink in rooms you were born to lead in. You'll downplay your brilliance to make others comfortable. You'll question your own voice, your own value. And every time you do that, you dim your light just a little more. The world doesn't need a quieter version of you. It needs the full, whole, blessed version of who you are. Declaring that you are a blessing is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is understanding that your worth does not fluctuate with someone else's approval. It is choosing to see yourself as whole even when you're still healing. It is deciding that you are not waiting one more day to feel worthy, to feel capable, to feel powerful. You speak it until you believe it. You believe it until you live it. Every single day, life will try to tell you otherwise. It will throw comparison in your face, remind you of your past mistakes, whisper fears into your ears. But when you start your day by declaring, I am the blessing, you build a shield against that noise. You set the tone. You start to act like someone who knows their life carries meaning. Someone who moves with intention, who shows up with love and clarity. This declaration isn't just for the good days, it's especially for the hard ones. The days when you feel forgotten, the days when nothing makes sense, the days when you question your purpose, your path, your place in the world. Those are the days when this truth matters most. Saying, I am the blessing, is not about denying your pain. It's about not letting your pain define you. It's about saying, even now, especially now, I am still worthy. I am still light. I am still the miracle I've been praying for. The more you declare it, the more you begin to live from that space. Your choices reflect it, your boundaries reflect it. The way you treat yourself starts to change. You stop settling for less than you deserve. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that never saw your value in the first place. You walk differently, you speak differently, you love yourself with a boldness that can't be shaken by someone else's silence. You become the blessing in someone else's life, not by trying to be perfect, but by being real, by standing tall in your truth, by refusing to wait for the world to affirm what God already placed in you. You are the blessing because you carry within you the power to shift a room with your presence, to uplift others with your words, to heal through your honesty. You are light. So speak that over yourself again and again, especially when it feels hard to believe. Let it echo louder than your doubts. Let it rise higher than your fears. Let it be your daily anthem, not just a line you repeat, but a truth you embody. The blessing is not something far off. It's not a goal to achieve. It's you right now, as you are, becoming, rising, living, loving, learning. And the moment you declare that, everything. So now, my beloveds, let me leave you with this. You have been given something sacred, your voice, your breath, your power. Hello, everyone. When was the last time you listened to the sound of your own soul whispering? I mean, truly listened. Not to the noise of the world or the demands of the day, but to that tender voice within, the one that trembles sometimes, the one that rises like morning sun when you remember who you are. You see, we often forget that we are sacred. We forget that we are deserving of kindness. We rush to pour comfort into others, yet leave ourselves standing in the cold. That is not love. That is neglect dressed in the garments of duty. There comes a time when you must pause. You must lean in close to your own spirit and speak to it like someone you love, not like someone you tolerate, not like someone you are trying to fix, but someone you cherish. Speak like you are wrapping your arms around your younger self who still weeps in the silence. Speak like you are healing the wounds that the world pretended not to see. Speak as though your voice carries the balm your heart has been begging for. The words you speak to yourself shape the life you live. That simple truth holds more weight than we often realize. In a world where we're constantly being spoken to by media, by people, by pressure, we forget that the loudest voice, the most constant voice, is our own. It murmurs beneath every decision. It echoes in the quiet moments. It waits for us when we rise, and it follows us when we fall. And if that voice is cruel, if it is sharp and bitter, then it becomes the thread that sews our days with quiet pain. We must become more mindful of that voice because it is the architect of our inner world. When you speak to yourself with love, the world shifts, not because the world becomes easier, but because you become softer where it matters and stronger where it counts. That kind of inner kindness is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's not about looking in the mirror and ignoring your flaws. It's about choosing to see yourself through a lens of compassion instead of criticism. You begin to understand that your mistakes are not monuments to shame, but markers of growth. You stop defining yourself by your failures and begin honoring your efforts. You give yourself credit not only when you succeed, but when you survive, when you show up, when you try again after falling apart. The way you speak to yourself sets the tone for how you carry your pain and how you celebrate your joy. If you call yourself worthless, how can you possibly build a life that feels meaningful? If you constantly say you're not enough, how will you ever recognize when you truly are? Your thoughts repeated often enough become your beliefs. Your beliefs shape your actions. Your actions form the story of your life. So what kind of story are you writing with your words? We don't get to control everything in this life. There are people who will misunderstand us. There are moments that will break us. There are days when nothing goes right. But we do have a choice in how we meet those moments within ourselves. We can choose to berate ourselves, or we can choose to befriend ourselves. And when we choose the latter, everything changes. You begin to approach your days with more calm, more clarity, and more confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because you are no longer your own enemy. Speak to yourself like someone you love. That means being patient when you stumble. That means being gentle when you're hurting. That means reminding yourself of your worth even when no one else is doing it. You wouldn't abandon a friend in their struggle, so don't abandon yourself in yours. You wouldn't mock a loved one for their insecurities, so don't mock your own. Learn to be a steady presence for yourself. Let your voice be the one that soothes you in chaos, that calms your fear, that reminds you it's okay to rest. You are allowed to be a work in progress and still be worthy of love. You are allowed to be healing and still be powerful. And it all starts with how you speak to the person you see in the mirror each day. If your voice has the power to break you, it also has the power to build you. So choose your words with care. Shape your life with love. You're listening even when you don't realize it. And what you say matters. Self-love begins with the tone of your inner dialogue. Not the grand gestures or the surface affirmations alone, but the quiet, consistent way you speak to yourself in the most ordinary moments. That tone, whether nurturing or harsh, sets the emotional climate of your life. It becomes the invisible wind that either lifts you or pushes you down, and yet so many of us are walking through life under a constant storm of our own making, speaking words to ourselves that we would never dare say to another human being. You make a small mistake and suddenly you're calling yourself names. You fall short of a goal and you tell yourself you'll never be enough. You look in the mirror and find flaws instead of beauty. It becomes so automatic that you don't even notice it anymore. It hides in your size and the way you hold your shoulders and the way you avoid your own eyes. But that tone, that quiet inner current, it's carving out who you believe you are. And if the tone is cruel, your self-image becomes wrapped in criticism, and you begin to live smaller than your spirit was meant to. But imagine if that tone changed. Imagine if it became warmer, gentler, more forgiving. Imagine waking up and instead of immediately thinking of all the things you haven't done, you thanked yourself for making it through another day. Imagine making a mistake and saying, "That's okay, I'll learn from this," instead of, "I'm such a failure." Imagine how your entire sense of worth would shift, not because the world suddenly applauded you, but because you finally decided to honor yourself from within. You don't heal by punishing yourself. You don't grow by beating yourself down. Growth is fed by care. Healing is nourished by understanding. And self-love is born in the voice that comforts instead of condemns. The tone you use with yourself should be one that encourages, not one that destroys. Because at the end of the day, you are your own constant companion. You are the one you spend every moment with. So why not choose to be kind? Some people believe that being hard on themselves is how they stay disciplined. But fear is a poor motivator, and shame is an even worse teacher. You do not have to tear yourself down to be accountable. You can be honest and still be compassionate. You can push yourself while still offering grace. Speaking with love does not mean you excuse harmful behavior. It means you approach your growth with gentleness instead of judgment. And that makes all the difference. The world can be unkind, people can be careless with their words, so it is all the more important that you create a sanctuary in your own mind. Let your voice be the one that offers peace when the outside noise becomes too loud. Let it be the steady rhythm that reminds you of your strength, your softness, your humanity. Let it be the light in your dark moments, the one that says, you're doing the best you can and that is enough for today. You have spoken to yourself in 1,000 tones. Try the one that sounds like love. Try the one that feels like home. Because when your inner dialogue shifts, everything else follows. Not overnight, not all at once, but with time, with intention, with truth. The tone of your voice becomes the tone of your life. Speak gently, you are listening. You cannot bloom while bullying your own spirit. A flower does not rise under thunder. A tree does not stretch toward the sky when the soil beneath it is cracked by harshness. And yet, so many of us try to grow while feeding ourselves with words that wither us from the inside out. We expect progress while drenching our hearts in self-judgment. We expect confidence while constantly tearing down our own voice. That kind of inner violence, however quiet, becomes the very chain that keeps us small. Every day we speak to ourselves in ways that make blooming impossible. We say we are not good enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough to take up space or dream boldly. We compare our stories with others and declare our own path unworthy before it has even had time to unfold. This constant inner criticism becomes a habit, then a belief, then a way of life. We don't even notice the damage being done because it comes wrapped in the disguise of being realistic or self-aware. But there is nothing realistic about abandoning your own soul, and there is nothing self-awareness about shrinking from your light. Growth demands tenderness. It demands that we create an inner space where mistakes are allowed, where uncertainty is not punished, where vulnerability is not mocked. That is where blooming begins, not in perfection, but in patience, not in harsh judgment, but in loving repetition. You learn, you fail, you try again. And through it all, you must become the steady hand on your own back, not the harsh voice that keeps you afraid to rise. When you bully your spirit, you silence your own wisdom. You lose touch with your own rhythm. You begin to move only when pushed by fear instead of drawn by love. That is not blooming, that is surviving. And while survival is necessary, it is not the same as living fully. You were made for more than enduring. You were made to rise with purpose, to unfold with grace, to feel joy in your own skin. And that begins not with the praise of others, but with the language you speak to yourself in private. Think of the people you love most. You protect them, you encourage them, you stand by them when they are unsure. You don't demand perfection from them to deserve love, so why hold yourself to a different standard? Why deny yourself the same compassion you so easily give away? The truth is, when you begin to treat yourself like someone you love, you stop waiting for permission to bloom, you stop begging the world to see your worth, and start begging that recognition from within. We all carry stories, we all carry pain, but our spirits were not meant to be bruised over and over by our own words. There is enough in the world that tries to dim our light. We must not add to that fire. Instead, we must speak in ways that water our roots, in ways that say, you are still learning, and that is beautiful. In ways that say, you are worthy even now, even still. That is how you bloom, not because life becomes easier, but because you finally become your own shelter. So pause and listen to the way you speak to yourself. Ask if those words are helping you grow or holding you back. And then, if needed, shift your tone. Choose a voice that nourishes. Choose one that believes. Because you cannot bloom in a field of thorns, but you can bloom when you tend gently to the garden of your soul. Be the comfort you crave from others in your own voice. That is not just a sweet idea, it is a necessity. Because sometimes the people you need won't show up the way you hoped. Sometimes love doesn't arrive when you ache for it most. Sometimes silence is all that answers you. And in those hollow spaces, you must learn to be the warmth that wraps around your own aching edges. You must learn to speak to yourself like someone who knows exactly where it hurts and still stays close. We spend so much time waiting for someone to understand us, to validate us, to reassure us that we are enough. And when that reassurance doesn't come, we begin to believe something must be wrong with us. We begin to think we are unworthy because the world has not yet confirmed our value. But healing cannot be built only on outside voices, because external comfort is not always guaranteed. What is always available, though, is the voice within you, the one you can train to be soft, to be steady, to be kind. Think of the moments when your heart has been heavy. Did you reach for your own hand? Did you offer yourself gentleness? Or did you pile more judgment onto the weight you were already carrying? When you cry alone, do you tell yourself to toughen up? Or do you whisper the same words you would offer to a friend in pain? So often we forget that we have the power to be a source of love, not only for others, but for ourselves. The comfort we seek isn't out of reach. It's inside us, waiting to be spoken into existence. Being your own comfort does not mean you never need others. It means you are no longer dependent on their approval to feel whole. It means that when people fall short, and they will, you do not fall apart. You have built something strong inside yourself. You have created a voice that doesn't abandon you when the world gets quiet. And that voice becomes your anchor, your soft place to land, your reminder that you are held even when no arms are there. The words you say in those quiet, vulnerable moments matter. They can build you or break you. When fear rises, speak safety. When sadness lingers, speak presence. When you feel lost, speak direction. It may feel awkward at first. It may feel unnatural, but over time, that practice becomes your power, and slowly, you stop waiting for someone to come save you because you realize you've already begun saving yourself. It is a beautiful thing to be loved by others, but it is transformational to be loved by the person you live with every day, yourself. You know your fears, you know your dreams, you know the stories that made you, the pain that shaped you, the hope that still flickers even when the lights are low. Who better than to offer the comfort you crave? Who better to say, I see you, I believe in you, and I will not leave you? Speak those words, offer them freely, wrap them around your insecurities, lay them gently over your shame. Let your voice become the shelter you've longed for. You are capable of it. More than that, you deserve it. The comfort you give yourself becomes the strength that carries you forward even when no one else does. And that kind of strength cannot be shaken. Gentle self-talk is not weakness, it is survival. In fact, it is one of the strongest, most radical acts you can practice in a world that often teaches us to be hard, unyielding, and endlessly self-critical. We are raised in environments where perfection is praised and vulnerability is mistaken for fragility. So we learn to armor ourselves with silence and shame. We convince ourselves that harshness will make us better, stronger, more successful. But what it often does is leave us hollow, disconnected from the voice inside that only ever wanted kindness. Strength is not in how much you can punish yourself. Real strength is found in the way you continue to show up for yourself with tenderness, especially when it feels like you don't deserve it. It is in choosing to say, I forgive you, when your mind wants to replay your regrets on a loop. It is in whispering, you are still learning. When your fear says you'll never be enough, it is in placing your hand over your heart and saying you are safe here when the world outside feels anything but safe. That's not weakness. That's survival at its most sacred. There's a quiet kind of power in speaking gently to yourself when everything in you is screaming for judgment. That moment of pause, that breath between thought and reaction, is where transformation lives. It's where you decide that your healing matters more than your self-criticism. It's where you choose to rewrite the old script that says you are only valuable when you are flawless, because you are not meant to be flawed. You are meant to be whole. And wholeness does not come from breaking yourself into pieces to meet impossible standards. So many people walk around wearing invisible wounds, scars from battles fought within, the battles no one sees. The inner dialogues laced with not good enough, too much, never going to change. That kind of voice drains the spirit. It dims the light in your eyes. It steals the softness from your smile, and it is entirely preventable. You can be the one who breaks that cycle. You can be the one who chooses a different tone, a kinder tone, one that says, I'm proud of you for trying, even if you didn't get it right the first time. Gentle self-talk allows growth to happen. It invites you to show up fully without fear of your own judgment. It gives you space to breathe, space to reflect, space to change. Without that softness, self-improvement turns into self-punishment. But with compassion, even your hardest days can become stepping stones. Because when you treat yourself with care, you recover faster, you learn deeper, you rise more willingly, and you stop seeing yourself as the problem and start seeing yourself as the process, fluid, evolving, worthy. This isn't about being passive or letting yourself off the hook when you know you need to do better. It's about refusing to use cruelty as a motivator, because cruelty doesn't teach, it tears. It leaves you too wounded to move forward. Gentleness, on the other hand, gives you the strength to keep walking. It reminds you that every stumble is still movement. Every setback still holds a seed. Every flaw still belongs in yours. Speak to yourself gently, not just when things are going well, but especially when they are not. That is when it matters most. That is when your voice becomes either a refuge or another wound. Choose to be a refuge. Choose to speak in a way that heals, because in the quiet moments, when the noise fades and the world is still, the only voice that remains is yours. Let it be one that loves you back. Healing starts the moment you choose to be kind to yourself. Not tomorrow, not when everything feels better, not after the pain is past. It begins right in the middle of the ache, when your heart is heavy and your thoughts are tangled, and yet you still decide to offer yourself gentleness instead of blame. That one small choice, choosing kindness over criticism, becomes the first thread in stitching your soul back together. We're taught that healing is something that happens later, something that waits for the perfect conditions, but healing does not wait. It arrives the second you soften your voice toward yourself. It lives in that quiet decision to stop tearing yourself apart over things you could not control. It breathes in the silence where you once filled yourself with judgment. Healing is not a thunderous transformation. It's a whisper, a slow unfolding. It begins not with a solution, but with a shift in how you speak to your own pain. So many people carry wounds made deeper, not by the world, but by their own inner voice. The voice that said, you should have known better. The voice that mocked their fear, questioned their worth, doubted their strength. That voice becomes a shadow that follows them through every experience. And the only way to break that shadow is to meet it with kindness. You cannot hate yourself into healing. You cannot punish your way into peace. You must choose love again and again until it becomes the language you live in. That kindness may look like pausing instead of pushing. It may look like forgiving yourself for what you didn't know back then. It may look like saying, I'm doing the best I can, and actually believing it. And every time you do that, a part of you exhales. A part of you that's been bracing for impact finally releases the tension it's held for years. You begin to realize that your softness is not weakness. It's the very thing carrying you through. It doesn't mean your pain disappears overnight. It doesn't mean you won't fall back into old habits, but now you fall with a little more grace. Now you stand with a little more steadiness, because the voice within you no longer adds harm. It becomes a companion, a guide, a witness to your becoming. And that changes everything. You no longer walk through life looking for rescue. You become the one who holds your own hand through the storm. Choosing to be kind to yourself doesn't erase your past. It reclaims it. It turns every wound into a doorway, every regret into a lesson, every scar into a symbol of survival. You stop hiding from yourself and begin to sit beside your own shadow. You speak gently to the parts of you that are still hurting, still healing, still growing. And in doing so, you create a place within you where love can rest. You've tried being hard on yourself. You've tried silence, shame, and self-criticism. Now try kindness. Just try it. Speak to yourself like someone who deserves to be heard, seen, forgiven, and loved. Because you do. You always have. And the moment you begin to believe that is the moment healing truly begins. So as you leave these words behind and step back into your world, remember this. Your voice is the first home your soul ever knew. Let it be a place of refuge, not ruin. Let it be the light in your darkest hour and the strength in your quietest triumphs. You do not need to wait for the world to love you before you start loving yourself. Speak gently, speak truthfully, and speak often in the language of love to the one person who walks with you through every joy and every sorrow, yourself. Because healing, growth, and peace do not begin with perfection. They begin with compassion. You are not too broken, too late, or too far gone. You are becoming, you are unfolding, and that journey deserves words soaked in grace. Good luck on your path forward. Keep showing up for yourself with love. And from the deepest place in my heart, thank you for listening.